Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy, once again hosting a conversation with a business communication expert. It's a genuine pleasure today to host Mary Amons, based in the Washington, D.C. area, which is appropriate since she was a cast member on Bravo TV's Real Housewives of D.C. It's a fascinating fact also that she has a very famous grandfather, Arthur Godfrey, a superlative pioneer in the early days of radio and television, and his impact is still felt. Yet Mary Amons has done much more than star in a TV series. If you looked up the word versatile in the dictionary, I think you'd find her picture. After mentioning first that she's a proud mother of 5 children, she could add that she's principal of a full service design firm, Mary Amons Design. Additionally, she uses her vast talents as a film producer, voiceover talent, and philanthropist. Plus, she launched a lifestyle brand, Happy Chica. Regarding philanthropy, Mary says, my exposure as executive director of the Vince Lombardi Foundation for a decade while raising my young kids gave me excessive training in management, fundraising, networking, event planning, communication, and I like this. Above all else, she says, confidence in myself as a get her done gal. So you can imagine how elated I am to have Mary Amons today, and also to let you know that she joins Trip Braden and me as co-moderators of the Communication Corner on Clubhouse every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll tell you, she's a superb teammate. So join me now as we welcome Mary Amons to the Biz Communication Show. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Bill. It's so wonderful to be with you. I've watched several of your episodes, so I'm really honored to be included and invited in your list of people.
Well, you honor us by your presence, and you honor me by letting me know that you've seen previous episodes. It's a fun series every week to talk with people about business communication. I mentioned Arthur Godfrey as your grandfather, and I can still remember what I guess we would call his mellifluous tones, where
Mellifluous. I haven't heard that word in a long time.
well, you just heard it now. His mellifluous tones, when I can just still hear him say, "And now we're going to pour a cup of Lipton tea," one of his longtime sponsors. You were with your grandfather until your late teen years, and so I'm curious, what communication skills did you learn from Arthur Godfrey, from watching him and listening to him? What communication skills did you learn that carried over into your acting career, your philanthropy career, your lifestyle career? What would you say were major, 2 or 3 major communication lessons you learned from Arthur Godfrey? One of the best.
Mm. Well, I would say that I will answer that question by telling you a little story. One of the things that I learned from him was something he actually taught me. And the story goes like this. We were sitting outside on a beautiful spring day. And it was a time when my grandmother sometimes would come pick me up. They lived out in the country outside in horse country outside of DC. So sometimes my grandmother would come and pick just me up and take me out to the farm for the weekend to just, I'm sure, relieve my mother because she was having babies after babies after babies. And so I had the really unique opportunity in spending a lot of time with him in my formative years, just hanging out, having lunch. And there was an afternoon that I'll never forget. It's like a movie in my head. We were sitting outside and there was a koi pond that they had that was right there with lily pads and beautiful koi fish bobbing up and down. and we were eating chicken salad sandwiches. I remember exactly what we were doing and drinking iced tea. And
Lipton's iced tea, of course.
Lipton's iced tea, of course. Anyway, we got into a conversation. He asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I think I was 9 at the time, between 8 and 10. So I'm going to say I probably was around 9. And I told him very confidently that I wanted to be an actress. And he almost choked on his sandwich when he heard those words.
Because he knew what that was all about.
Oh, yes. And he knew the rejection of the business and the hardship of the business. And, I think he was pretty disgruntled because of what transpired in his career with, him excusing JuliusLaRosa on live television and how his audience really kind of turned their backs on him. And I think he was wrongly characterized. And I think the CBS network had a lot to do with his downfall. So I think he was basically disgruntled about the business, period. And so I said, but it really is my dream to be an actress. And he waited and paused a little bit. And then he said, and I'll just say, he just took a sip of his tea and said, well, really, if that is your dream and that's really what you want to do, you need to learn to enunciate.
Because
very important.
Actresses must enunciate.
Yes, learn to enunciate and speak properly. And then he went off on a whole rant about how television today was, he was seeing all kinds of poor communication skills. And I think that's really why he was as effective as he was on the radio, is that he did enunciate. And if you think about it, he was born and raised in New Jersey, in Hoboken, New Jersey. And, they don't speak without an accent mostly.
But he did. He
had no accent. And he spoke very clearly, and he spoke like you speak. You have like a kind of a radio voice just in real life. I mean, that's how his voice developed, and that's how he spoke on a day-to-day. The other thing is he wanted to make sure that I maintained a really healthy, positive sense of humor. And he thought, if you can be funny, if you can be an effective communicator if you insert humor into your communication skills. And then he taught me that it's very important to be a good listener. And, he interviewed thousands and thousands of people. And so that skill is very important in that arena. I mean, if you're going to be asking people questions, you have to listen to what they're saying so that the interview can flow. And so, yeah, those are three things definitely that I take with me, that I learned by example from him, being around him.
Very valuable lessons. The thing I remember most about his delivery, Mary, was that you felt very much like this was a guy sitting at your, I started to say coffee table, but I guess it'd be tea table.
Yeah.
Somebody just sitting by you having a conversation. And when I read a sketch about him in Wikipedia, it said this was one of the distinctions, that when Arthur Godfrey came along, most of the people on national television and radio had what we would call very formal, stilted styles.
Canned.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
scripted and canned.
Yeah. Exactly. And one of the things I like to think of is that Arthur Godfrey would not have minded too much if sometimes he accidentally put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
He did many times.
Yes. He was just
to be funny.
Yes. And he was a guy who really was sort of a down-home folks guy, very, very much so. Now, something else I'd like to get on to, we mentioned that your first venture into professional life was directing a very important philanthropic foundation. That was the Vince
Yes.
Lombardi Foundation, right?
Yes, that's something my father started in the name of Vince Lombardi. Back in 1970, Coach Lombardi came to play for what was called then the Redskins. We can't
Oh,
call them
yes.
that anymore. Politically incorrect, and I understand. So the Washington football team. So he was the coach there for one season. And in that one season, he was diagnosed with cancer. And he was treated at Georgetown University Hospital. And in that year, that there was only the oncology wing of the hospital. And he eventually ended up dying in DC. And my father, who played football at both Notre Dame and USC, Southern Cal, was a huge fan of Coach Lombardi and his philosophies. And it just very serendipitously happened that when my father was a lobbyist for ITT back in the late 60s, early 70s, their offices were on the same floor as the Washington Redskin corporate offices. So he would run into Lombardi personally in the elevator or in the hallway. And so they developed a rapport. And when he did die, my father gathered together a group of the very important politicians, Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, Bob Michael, the majority leader, a lot of people that were golfers. And he just threw together, very last minute, he found a public course outside the Beltway and raised $5,000 to donate to the oncology program at Georgetown in his, sorry, something's happening. He donated, they raised $5,000 that first year in 1971 and donated.
And $5,000 meant something then.
That was a lot of money for,
yes.
And the way it was structured is he sold sponsorships to play with members of Congress that they would, this is back before the ethics committee changed all those rules about what those members of Congress can do and receive. But it was basically a golf outing for the corporations to spend the day with their favorite member to talk politics and their agendas. And the tournament went on for 29 years, and we raised millions and millions of dollars. I forget, I think it's in the, I don't know how many millions of dollars they raised, but when the cancer center was being thought of and they were going to name it for Lombardi, my father's fundraising was a major portion of the seed money to start the Lombardi Cancer Center. It's the Vince Lombardi Cancer Research Center at Georgetown University Hospital. And when I was growing up, this was our family activity. I mean, it was all hands on deck, and we were stuffing gift bags and showing up and checking people in and writing down foursomes and sending people off on their way. And it evolved into a weekend long of activities where we would have a golf tournament, a tennis tournament, and a 10K run, and a VIP cocktail party. And we attracted all kinds of Hollywood celebrities. And I mean, all the politicians wanted to participate.
Did you play in the tennis tournament? I know you're a tennis player.
I never did play because I was working.
Right.
I had to run the thing, but my dad gave me the gift and the opportunity to become the executive director of that foundation and that event. And I did that for 10 years while I was at home. I was able to work out of my home and have my babies. And I did it until I had my third child. And then things really started to change, the climate and with the ethics committee and what you could do, and how corporations were not as giving as they were before. And it just got to be to the point where we needed to just have an end to it, because all good things have to come to an end.
I'm sure that as head of the philanthropic organization, the Vince Lombardi Foundation. Your communication studies in college, you were a communication major. You certainly, and I've told you before that I spent a couple of decades in philanthropic work. It really takes all of your communication skills, doesn't it?
Oh yes, yes, for sure. You have to learn how to diplomatically ask for money. And there is a way to do that. And I learned to do that pretty well. And I also very diplomatically learned how to manage myself in social settings with high profile people, and just navigate organizing people, and how to put out fires effectively without escalating situations. Because, when you're planning events, things go wrong. Things always go wrong, but you have to figure it out and get through it.
Yeah, with a
So
golf tournament, it can even be the weather.
Oh, yes. Yes. Always a factor. But I mean, checking someone in, we didn't get your check. You were supposed to play in this foursome, and, then I have to be very diplomatic and say, we're going to fix this and we're going to make you happy.
Time is racing along, but we certainly need to talk about your acting career.
Yes.
Tell us about that, please.
Well, what's interesting is that I studied acting in DC at the Studio Theater. And back in 2009, I had been running a charity of my own called Labels for Love. And I was pretty prominent in the social philanthropic scene here in DC. And just by a fluke, I was approached by some producers about participating in a reality show. And so when we use the term acting, I use that loosely because it's a reality show, but it's also, and it's not scripted. There's no script we're reading, but it is my real life and it is being edited. And so I would say that there was some acting skills displayed there on my part to just portray, the best image I could of myself. And I was myself for sure. My authenticity was very important to be shown. But we did one season. There was one season, and we had a very catastrophic episode happen on our show. The Salahis that were in our cast were the ones that crashed Obama's first state dinner, President Obama's first state dinner.
Not good publicity.
Not good publicity. And it really did kind of hijack the show. And they had to go back and re-edit a lot of our footage. And we lost a lot of our own personal character development because of them. But I have to say, when I presented this idea that I was going to do this to my father, who is a lawyer, and he is one of the pioneers of the cable business, he thought I was crazy, absolutely crazy, for considering such a risk to myself and to my family.
Just like Arthur Godfrey thought it.
Yes. Well, he is the father of reality television, if you think about it.
Yes.
Because he hosted real people who had talent and made them stars. And so it's the same as like Talent Scouts or The Voice or any of those shows that are on today.
He was a pioneer in that. Yes.
Yeah. So I would say it's full circle that his granddaughter ended up a cast member on a reality show. But anyway, it was, I had to convince my father that I thought it was a good idea, and that I thought it really was going to be a one-off, because I don't think reality shows work well in DC, because people really like to keep their business private. And it ended up happening just as I thought. And so it was a blessing in disguise, because it gave me an opportunity to build a platform and to further my charity work, which is why I did it. Even though my whole charity storyline was cut from the whole premise of the show because of the Salahis and their nonsense. But it was a great experience. And it really was a very surreal opportunity to see myself in my real life on camera. It's very different from looking in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say that. You see yourself on camera as yourself with your family, you see a lot of angles that you don't see when you look in the mirror.
Mary, we've only got about 2 minutes, so
Oh,
let me ask
goodness.
you to tell us what you're doing now with Mary Amons Designs.
I am working, I have some clients here in DC that I'm working on their homes. I'm also working on a hotel project. I can't name the hotel, but it's a very famous hotel, helping renovate their common spaces. It's been very exciting. I've been doing that for about a year. And then I'm starting a lifestyle brand called Hippie Chica. That is basically a very approachable, down-to-earth lifestyle brand that I'll be creating a fashion line, home goods line, products. This cross that I wear every day, I'm going to be reproducing that, and talking all kinds of health and wellness. And I'm starting a podcast.
I think one thing I could say about your life is I doubt that you've ever had a dull moment.
No, with 5 kids and being the oldest of 7, no.
Yes, yes. I mean, you had a tribe to begin with, didn't you?
We do. We do. We really do have a tribe here. Now we're 35 people, just us.
And a definite career path that has been challenging, rewarding, and through it
Yes,
all, you felt some remarkable personal and professional growth.
I have. And specifically in the last year, I've been through some major reset and transformation. I lived in Dallas, Texas for 2 years, and now I'm back in DC, and I've been doing a lot of spiritual work on myself, and I really have a new whole world is my oyster approach, starting this lifestyle brand, and I'm going to have a cooking show too.
I see one day, and then we'll have to close, but I see one day when we get audiences and conventions and conferences back again, to me, you'll be a wonderful keynote speaker. You have some incredible stories. You got
I do.
some great themes. I see you as a keynote speaker.
Thank
Mary,
you.
let me ask you, please. I know people will want to contact you, and I'll have to say before we close, we've just begun to scratch the surface. So I'm just bold enough to say we're going to have to have you back again as a guest on the Biz Communication Show.
I'd love to be back, Bill.
But
Thank
please
you.
give us your contact information.
Yeah, so people can find me on Instagram. It's Mary Amons is my personal Instagram, and then my lifestyle brand is Hippie Chica Official. So it's HIPPYCHICA Official. And then there's a website, hippiechica.com. And you can see my design portfolio on maryamonsdesign.com.
Thank you. And since you've given your contact information, I'll give mine, Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy. So logically, my website is bizcommunicationguy.com. Invite you to go there, check my services for corporations and leaders. Give me a call. Let's discuss your communication challenges and problems and how I can assist you with them. Mary, 30 seconds for a closing thought from you, please.
A closing thought, I would say that it's never too late to do exactly what you love. You're never too old to start over. I would also say that failures are not really failures. They're opportunities for growth and transformation. So keep going is my message.
Great closing message. Thanks, Mary Amons, for being with us on the Biz Communication Show. Thanks to those of you who have been watching and listening. We invite you to be with us again next week when I will have the privilege once more of hosting another business communication expert on the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton.